today's lesson is on order of operations, and yes, we have a typo right here. Sorry about that. From left to right. Okay. Now, order of operations, you've seen PEMDAS before. That stands for parentheses, exponents, and then multiplication and division from left to right. So that means if you see division first, you're going to do division first. And then addition and subtraction from left to right. Okay, let's go ahead and look at number 1. On number 1, we don't have any parentheses. We don't have any exponents, so we look for multiplication or division. You see some right here, so 6 times 9 would be 54. So what I want you to do is I want you to write 54. I want you to bring down the 5 plus 54. I don't want you to do all of this in your head at one time. I want you to show your work. And then 5 plus 54 would be 59. Okay, number 2. No parentheses, no exponents, but we do have division here in the middle. So we're going to start with that. So bring down the 8 plus 12 divided by 6 is 2, and bring down your minus 3. One step at a time, please. Then, starting from left to right, 8 plus 2 is 10. Bring down your minus 3, and then 10 minus 3 would be 7. Number 3. No parentheses, no exponents, but we do have division right here. So bring down your 21 plus 49 divided by 7 is 7. Bring down your plus 1. Then starting from left to right, 21 plus 7 is 28. Plus 1 is 29. Good. Okay, number 4. We don't have any parentheses, but we do have an exponent here. So we're going to drop the 5 down, put our multiplication symbol, and then 3 squared means 3 times 3, which is 9, and bring down the minus 13. After the exponents, we look for multiplication or division, which we see 5 times 9 is 45. And then we're going to subtract 13. 45 minus 13 is
32.
32. Good. Okay, on number 5, what do you suppose we should do first here? Exponents first. So bring down the 8 times 4 plus, and then what would 9 squared be?
81.
81. Good. Okay, now we look and we do the multiplication. 8 times 4 is
32.
32 plus 81.
It's 113.
113. Good. Okay, this one's a little bigger. We're going to work in the parentheses first. So bring down the 17 minus 5 squared divided by, and let's do inside. 2 to the 4th power. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Good. Is 16 plus 3 squared is 9. Bring this all down, and then 16 plus 9 is 25. All right, so we've done our parenthesis. Now exponent. We see an exponent there, so bring down the 17 minus 5 squared would be
10. No, 25.
5 times 5 is 25. Bring down the divided by 25. Then go back, now that we've done parentheses and exponents, and look for any multiplication or division.
There's the
25 divided by 25.
So we have 17 minus 1, and that would be
16.
16. There we go. Okay, next one, parentheses, 7 squared
49.
minus 3 squared.
9.
Close the parenthesis, divide by 8. We're still working in that parenthesis, one step at a time. 49 minus 9 is 40, divided by 8 is 5.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now you're going to need to be very careful down here. All right, so C times E times F, that's what number 8 is. Well, C, if you look in right here, this tells us what each of the variables stands for or represents. So C is 2, so we have 2 times E is negative 3 times F is negative 1. So we got positive 2 times negative 3 times negative 1. 2 times 3 is 6 times 1 is 6. And remember, when you're multiplying, a negative and a negative is a positive.
I remember that from the 10th.
Ooh, that's fancy right
All right, c squared. So 2 to the second power times e, which is negative 3, times f, which is negative 1.
Wait, so we have to solve the expression.
That's what you're doing. You're substituting in the numbers for the variables, and then you're simplifying.
And then solving, okay.
All right, so 2 squared would be 4. So we have 4 times negative 3 times negative 1. Well, 4 times 3 times 1 is 12, and you've got 2 negatives, so that's going to be positive 12.
Okay.
Questions so far?
I'm a little bit behind.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, on number 10, C is 2, so we're going to write 2 minus, and then E is negative 3. So we're still going to put that negative 3 there. So we've got a 2 minus a negative 3. Well, a minus and a negative side by side like that make a positive. So this is really 2 plus 3, which is just 5. Okay, number 11, 2 times C. 2 times C is 2. Minus 4 times E is negative 3. Okay, listen very carefully here. 2 times 2 is 4. Now, you got a couple options here. If you want to bring down this minus sign and then just do 4 times negative 3 and say that's a negative 12, you can do that. And then you have to understand that this minus and this negative make a plus. So 4 plus 12 would be 16. Otherwise, you could have looked at this as a negative 4 times a negative 3 is a positive 12, and you could have written 4 plus 12. Either way, you're still going to get 16.
Yeah.
All right, let's flip over to the back. All right, now, listen very carefully. There's always kids that mess up here, so I want you to pay close attention. This right here, this negative right there, that is a negative x squared. The square here is only for the x, not for the negative. So that's saying, basically that negative sign is saying the opposite of x squared. Well, they're telling us to use 1 for x. So we're going to plug in 1 here for x, and we're going to square it, and then we're going to take the opposite of that number. So we're not squaring negative 1. We're not going to do negative 1 times negative 1. We're going to do positive 1 times positive 1 because x is 1. X is positive 1. And then we'll put the negative in front. If it helps you to understand negative x squared, it's kind of like this. Negative 1 times x squared. That means this right here. So if that's the case, then you can see why we would just put our 1 here, and then we just keep that negative out front. What I'm trying to say is that you need to take, if x is 1, then you are only putting a positive 1 in here for x. Leave the negative out front. So when we square this, we're only going to square positive 1. Let's bring the rest of this down for right now. So if we square positive 1, 1 times 1 is 1, and then the opposite of 1, or negative, is negative 1. Bring down the plus. Oh, you know what I should have done? Oops. In place of that x, what should I have put in there? A 1. Okay. Then bring down plus 8 times 1 minus 20. One step at a time. Now we can do that multiplication in the middle there, that 8 times 1. So negative 1 comes down, plus 8 times 1 is 8, minus 20. Now, because all we have left is addition and subtraction, I would suggest that anywhere you see subtraction, that you would add the opposite. Keep, change, change. So negative 1 plus 8 is fine. Well, let's go ahead and do that right now. A negative 1 plus 8. They're different signs. Find the difference and keep the sign of the higher number. So that would be what?
7.
7 minus 20. Okay, but remember, we have to keep, change, change, or add the opposite. So you keep the 7, You add, and the opposite of 20 is negative 20. Good, negative 13. The difference is 13. 20's bigger. He's negative, so it's a negative 13. That should have been out front. That was not a good. Yes. Yes.
Negative 73.
Shh, that's supposed to be. Okay, we have a question, so I need y'all to be quiet.
7 minus 20, why do you keep changing? Keep changing.
What?
If it's 7 minus 20, why do you keep changing?
We kept the 7, we changed the subtraction to addition, and we changed the 20 to negative 20.
Why though?
Because those are the rules with subtraction. Those are the rules with addition and, when you are subtracting negative and positive numbers, you have to think of it like you have $7, and then if you're going to subtract 20, that means you're going to give 20 away. Well, if you have $7 and you want to give 20 away, that means you're really short $13, right? You're really negative $13. So this is the strategy for coming up with the answer, is that you add the opposite. It's one of the math rules. You keep the first number, you change the subtraction to addition, and then you change this 20 to a negative 20. That way you're back to your addition rules that say if they're different signs, you find the difference. The difference between 7 and 20 is 13, and you take the sign of the higher number. The higher number is 20, so negative is the sign. Are you 7th grade?
No.
Okay. I'm just asking. I don't remember who. You're all mixed in together. I don't remember who's.
Like 8th graders are together, and then the 6th graders are on that.
They're not in
Hey.
6th graders.
So how's K to 6th grade? I mean, 7th graders.
Okay. Number 13.
They're in the little box.
We're going to plug in negative 1 right here for x. So bring down this negative 2, and then in place of x, we're going to put negative 1 squared minus 12, and then in place of x, we're going to put negative 1, and then minus 22. Okay, exponent first. So a negative 1 times a negative 1 is a positive 1. So we have negative 2 times positive 1 now, minus 12. Just bring all of this down. All I did is square that negative 1. Now, all of this is subtraction. So from left to right, start here. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. I would bring the rest of this down. I would only do 1 for right now. All right, now, your next step would be to multiply this part right here. But because this is a subtraction in front, right here, that's subtraction, you're going to want to keep, change, change. So we keep the negative 2, we change the subtraction to addition, and the opposite of 12 is a negative 12. You're going to have to do that over here too, because there's another subtraction sign, so you may as well do it. Keep what's in front, change subtraction to addition, and then that's a positive 22, so it's going to become a negative 22. All right, so bring down this negative 2, and let's multiply this. So we have a negative 12 times a negative 1. What would that be?
12.
Positive 12. So plus 12 plus negative 22 comes down. Now you have a couple options here because all of this is addition, and with addition, order doesn't matter. You can add these together first and then add this, or you can add, I would add the negative 2 with the negative 22 because they're like terms. They have the same sign. And remember with addition, if they have the same sign, you can just add them and keep the sign. So if we add negative 2 and negative 22, we get a negative 24. And then bring down that plus 12 that we haven't done anything with. Now we've got different signs, a negative 24 and a positive 12. So they're different signs, you find the difference. What's the difference between 24 and 12?
Negative 12.
12 is the difference, and then 24 is bigger. He's negative, so it is negative. Okay. Number 14. X is 2. So let's plug that in. So negative 2, and then in place of x, we're going to put a 2 squared. Minus 8 times 2 minus 6. All I did is take out all the x's and put a 2 in, since that's what the problem told me to do. So I'm going to square this 2 first. So I'm going to leave this negative 2 out front, times 2 times 2 is 4, and I'm going to bring the rest of this down. Now let's do this multiplication out front. Negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. Bring the rest of this down. Now I have a bunch of addition and subtraction. So any subtraction, I'm going to go ahead and add the opposite. So
What about the 8 times 2?
that's what we're about to do. Yeah, right. But in order to do that, I just want to go ahead and change this so you know what to multiply by that too. I mean, I guess you could do this. You could do this. You could bring down negative 8. You could bring this down, and 8 times 2 is 16. And then bring the 6 down. But what I want you to be careful of is if this 2 right here was negative, then this would be a negative 8 times a negative 2, which would be a positive 16. So that would be a plus 16 there. I know you look at that and say that's a minus sign. It is. But with the rules that we use, a minus sign is still acting like a negative here. So if you had a minus something and then a negative that you're multiplying together, it would change this to be a plus whatever the answer was. All right, so now keep, change, change, keep, change, change. They're all negative, so you can add them all up. And it's going to be negative 30. 30? Oh, right. Okay.
Wait, why is...
Because that's the way.
Why are the how are the 16 and the 6 negative if we just change them to plus?
Well, you can't just take a subtraction and make it plus. If you're going to take the subtraction and make it plus, you have to make the next number negative.
So you don't necessarily have to do that, right?
Well, if you understand this, if you can look at all that and get negative 30, then that's fine.
Okay. That I was getting seriously confused.
If you understand that to be negative 30, then you don't have to go through and change it.
Yeah. All right. I get it.
Okay, last one, number 15, this little geometry problem. The length of a rectangle is 3n plus 2. The width is n minus 1. The perimeter of the rectangle is twice the sum of the length and the width. Write an expression that represents the perimeter. So before we write the expression, let's draw a picture. Draw a rectangle. All right, it says the length is 3n plus 2. So 3n plus 2. The width is n minus 1. Well, if the length up top is 3n plus 2, the bottom is 3n plus 2. And both sides are n minus 1. Okay, so the perimeter, we need an expression for the perimeter. And there's a lot of options here. Anybody want to take a shot at what the expression might be? Perimeter means to add all the sides up. Jackson?
Would it be, hold on. So it would be P equals L plus W times 2.
Okay, we already have our expressions right there. 3n plus 2 and n minus 1. Okay, what do you think?
In parentheses, 2 times n minus 1 plus in parentheses 2 parentheses n 3n plus 2.
Yes.
So
That's one way. Okay, because you need 2 of the n minus 1s and you need 2 of the 3n's plus 2. You could do another thing. Well, you tell me. Anybody know another way we could write it? That's what we've pretty much been writing today. But does anyone see another way we could write an expression that would represent the perimeter of that rectangle? What does that equal? What does that equal?
2.
2. 2 plus 2 minus 2 is 2. So that's another option. Okay, and then for part B it says, find the perimeter of the rectangle when n equals 4. So if n is 4, we have 8 times 4 plus 2. 8 times 4 is 32 plus 2 is 34 what? Inches. Very good.